He went on through the cities and villages proclaiming and bringing the good news of the kingdom of God. And the 12 were with him, and also some women who had been healed of evil spirits and infirmities. Mary, called Magdalene, from whom 7 demons had gone out, and Joanna, the wife of Chuza, Herod's household manager, and also Susanna, and many others who provided for them out of their means. Pause there for just a moment, if you would, please. This is kind of an interesting and rather insightful insight into something that we don't hear about elsewhere in the Gospels, and that is how Jesus had his needs met during those years of earthly ministry. You know, not everything was, a miracle from the standpoint of, catching a fish and finding in its mouth, a coin that is enough to take care of all the needs of the day or whatever. There were women who followed Jesus along with his closest followers. And then, of course, there were always crowds that came along to see and to hear. But there were women who were devoted to following Jesus. And we're told that in addition to his 12, that those women included Mary of Magdala, which is what her name Magdalene means, out of whom we're told was cast 7 demons. So Jesus delivered her from a life of pretty incredible difficulty. Another woman was named Joanna, who was actually the wife of the steward of King Herod. That's kind of a crazy connection. And then we have a woman named Susanna. And then we're told there were several others who are unnamed, but we know that they supported Jesus. They were providing for him out of their own means. And this is really kind of interesting because, Jesus had a very different attitude as it relates to women than the rabbis of the day. It was quite common for a rabbi to ignore a woman and not to speak to her, not to directly anyway, not to minister to her. Jesus did all of those things, and he even allowed some of the women the privilege of following and caring for their needs out of their own ability and so forth. And of course, receiving from people, takes humility. And this shows some of the humble nature of Jesus, because it's humbling, isn't it, to receive goods from someone when you're in need. It's humbling. It's humbling to accept, I've told you guys before that when I was a young man just starting off in the ministry, I was doing a Bible study at a community nearby, about an hour away from the church where we were meeting, and I honestly, I have to admit, I had no business leading a Bible study at that point in my life, but they asked me to do it, and so I did it. And I've told you many times before that at the end of this particular Bible study, one of the guys just thrust out his hand to give me some money to kind of offset my gas cost or whatever. And my immediate response was like, no, and I'm not going to take your money, sort of a thing. But there was an older gentleman with me who was thankfully much wiser than I, and he just looked at me and he said, "You take it." And I didn't want to, I was kind of begrudging. Okay, I stuffed it in my pocket, And this guy and I rode together to this Bible study, and he kind of gave me a talking to on the way home, and basically kind of explained to me that it was an act of humility on my part to accept the gifts of others. And of course, I knew nothing of humility at that point. I knew nothing of really anything at that point. But he explained to me that it took a humble heart, to receive from people. And he was absolutely right. And I've learned that sense, and I see it here in the heart of Jesus. This is a man who did not need to receive from anyone. I mean, this is a man who could say to a stone, "Become bread," for his meal or whatever. He had that ability, as God in human flesh. And yet he received humbly the gifts of people. And, it's just cool to see